Expansion coming to the NBA, and the Lakers' shocking sale makes it a certainty. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Right now, out there, all of you, about 70% of you, not actually subscribed. Let's fix that. Hit that subscribe button. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, we were so surprised by the sale of the Los Angeles Lakers yesterday, and this is going to have some far-reaching ramifications around the NBA, including the expansion, and that's going to involve some teams moving conferences. So we're going to get into that in just a moment. But what was your reaction to the Lakers sale?
Shock. It would it's one of those things that just never would have crossed my mind that they would be doing that, right? And to work out a deal like that, they had to have been negotiating it for quite a while behind the scenes. And so, all the stuff that's come out about it, all that stuff, I'm like thinking like, man, this is kind of crazy. Like, especially the way that all the stuff was set up. Like I was texting you last night, about how, the shares are split and all this. Like it's just crazy. So for me, I was just absolutely shocked to hear about that. And then you get that sticker shock of like, oh, $10 billion or whatever. Like, didn't the Celtics just sell for like six? Like, what's happening there? Like,
$6 billion for the Celtics. The Mavs were about 4. The Hornets were 3, and
hey, it's the
10 billion
Lakers.
valuation. Whew.
It's the Lakers,
Goodness. Man. Yeah, not a bad time to be one of the Buss family members there if you're going to get a $10 billion valuation. Now, Brian Windhorst talked about why expansion is now coming because of the sale of the Los Angeles Lakers, but he also talks about the sale itself. So let's get into this here.
Yeah, this is a fascinating situation. So Mark Walter and his group have been partners with Jeannie Buss for the last few years. They bought 27% of the team a couple of years ago, and they had the right of first refusal. Any sale, they had the right to match. So if the Lakers were ever going to be sold, they were going to be sold to Mark Walter, and they were going to go for a record price because they are the Lakers. It was just a matter of when. Jerry Buss has 6 children, 4 from his first marriage, 2 from his second marriage, and they're pretty different in age. And to get the team to do anything significant like sell, there has to be a majority vote. And that's what happened here. It was not unanimous. And so while I don't know exactly the dynamics of how the vote went, historically, the older children had more interest in maybe selling, whereas the younger children didn't. And Jeannie Buss represented the swing vote. And so getting Jeannie on board was vital for Mark Walter and his group. And the fact that she's going to remain as governor obviously could have very much played into that decision. They are selling about 51% of the team. They own 66%. So they're going to get about $5 billion. Still incredibly, huge price for the team that Dr. Buss bought in 1979. So it is a capped sport. It is not like the Dodgers where they can just outspend everybody. So it's not as simple as comparing apples to apples.
Right.
That said, one of the reasons why the Dodgers became so successful was they're investing in infrastructure, in scouting, in front office, in analytics, in player development. And that is something where the Lakers, on a league average, have lagged behind. So that is why there's this reaction across the league.
So what Windhorst is talking about here with the Lakers and their sale, talking about it needed to be a majority of the 6 Buss kids. That means 4 of them had to vote for the sale. And I can tell you, I know this from conversations I've had. It's also been reported. It was not unanimous in terms of this sale going down. So, but it happens. Now, Mark Walter is going to be the primary controlling owner of the Lakers. Jeannie Buss will stay involved as the governor of the team. And as Wendy noted there, the Buss kids are going to maintain about a 15%. I've seen it reported somewhere up to like 18%. It depends on what, regardless, they need to have at least 15% in order for Jeannie to stay on as governor for the time being. Although I question how long Mark Walter, after spending $5 billion in order to purchase the controlling stake of the Lakers, how long he's going to be okay with not being the primary decision maker, or will he actually be the primary decision maker? A lot of those questions are still out there, even if Jeannie does stay involved. So all of these important details, but the most important thing for the NBA, for the league as a whole, number one, it's that the Lakers are now going to have much deeper pockets in terms of their ownership than they've had in the past. And number two, it's that $10 billion valuation, because that is what is going to push us towards expansion for the NBA. So Donnie, let's just jump right into that, the expansion piece of this here.
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's open this up a little further, because with Jeannie Buss selling Lakers for $10 billion, and Stephen A. kind of alluded to it, that's not the only team that's been sold as of late. In 2023, 4 other NBA franchises sold their team: the Celtics, the Suns, the Mavericks, the Hornets. They also made a sale, but none of them even comes close to the number. You could see $10 billion, $4 billion, as Stephen A. said, above the Celtics, and the Hornets sold for $3 billion, which it doesn't even feel like it compares at this point. So, Wendy, I want to go back to you. When you look at the sales, and particularly what the Lakers just sold for in terms of pricing, what does that mean for the future of the NBA?
Short-term future, if you're in Seattle and Las Vegas, you can feel good that the NBA is probably going to move towards expansion, because the value of these franchises, the reason why the NBA would not expand for all these years is that if you expand, you dilute your overall holding. Basically, what all 30 NBA owners have is 3% of the league. And so, you know, there's all this money coming in. You don't want to dilute what you have. And the expansion fee wouldn't necessarily make up for it. Well, that's not probably true anymore, because with these prices, the expansion fee, I don't know, it could be in excess of $6 billion. I don't even necessarily want to put a price on it, because you wait 6 months and it could be higher, and you would get that times 2. And an important thing to realize, and I know that this is a little bit arcane, but it's so important. When you make $1 in the NBA, whether it's through selling a ticket or getting money from the media rights, those dollars are split half with the players. With expansion, they're not split. The owners get to keep all of it. So with the prices this high, Shay, it almost certainly means the NBA is going to move towards expansion.
Okay, so
He said, F them players, like that MJ meme. F the kids. F the players.
well, that's part of the benefit. That's part of why we're going to see expansion. It's because they don't have to share it. They don't have to share that with the players. In fact, that expansion fee, that's the number I've heard too, about $6 billion. And so that expansion fee for a new team to come in, you get, and it's going to be 2 new teams. So $12 billion. If you are an NBA team and you own 1/30th essentially of the league, right? You are going to get a 1/30th share of that $12 billion, and you don't have to give any of that to the players. Now, Wendy talks about dilution there. So we talk about revenue sharing and all that sort of stuff. That all gets divvied up between 30 teams. Well, now when we get expansion, and again, this is when, not if we get expansion, it's coming. It's happening.
It's happening.
But now it's going to be your revenue is going to be split. You're going to be 1 out of 32 and not 1 out of 30. That also matters with stuff like the luxury tax. For example, like people don't often understand how big of a deal the luxury tax is. If you're a team that is $1 million over the luxury tax line, you'll see teams give up future assets to drop below that tax line, because it's not just that you're not paying the tax. If you are a non-tax team, what happens is all the teams that do pay the tax, that money gets pooled and then it gets divvied up between all the teams that do not pay the tax. So all those teams that pay the tax, they are writing a check to the teams that are not paying the salary tax. So
the Thunder are the best team. They're going to win the championship, and they're getting a check.
They're kicking everyone's ass, and other teams are paying them to do it. That's what's happening right now. It's part of why when the Chris Paul trade got rescinded way back in the day, part of the reason why Dan Gilbert for the Cavs was so upset was because not only were the Lakers getting Chris Paul, but also the Lakers were actually going to be saving money, which meant their luxury tax bill was going to go down, which meant he was going to get a smaller check from the Lakers in that situation. So all of this gets tied in, right? But now you've got 32 teams, so that money's going to get divvied up more. Well, Windhorst is saying there's the valuation of the teams is so high that dilution going from 30 to 32 teams, it's not as big of a deal, because they're going to get that $6 billion. Again, 2 teams, $12 billion for these teams coming in. So the dilution, you've now tipped that scale. And so that's why we're getting expansion now coming to the NBA. Donnie, to me, it makes a lot of sense. If you're an NBA owner, yes, getting 1/30th of a share in perpetuity, that certainly is attractive, but getting an immediate lump sum payout of your share of that $12 billion expansion fee, there's a lot you can do with that kind of money, right?
Sounds like that's why, they also wanted to stay on the Buss family, because they should get a chunk of that too, right?
Right. Yeah. They would get a portion of that if they stay on as
divvied to the Lakers.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If they've got that 15% share still in there of that. Yeah. Pretty amazing.
Yeah,
now we look at this. We look at the NBA map right here, and we know what's going to happen is when expansion hits within the next few years, and again, it's going to be Seattle and Vegas. It's the worst kept secret. It's going to be those two. Now the
Goodbye,
question becomes,
Minnesota.
right? Is that who it is? Like somebody's moving
Goodbye,
east.
Minnesota.
Someone is
Yeah.
moving east. One team's moving east from the west. Do you think Minnesota? I agree with you, by the way. I think it's Minnesota. But
Look
the
at-
three everybody talks about are Minnesota, Memphis, and New Orleans because they're the easternmost western
Yeah.
teams.
They're right there, but look at that flight from like the Bay, California area to Minnesota. That's insane. That's got to be the farthest travel out of all this. Aside from like Washington to like Golden State, you're going coast to coast right there. But you know,
Portland is but to play an in-conference team,
they're
you
a
have to play this
Western team though.
They're a Western team. That's it, right? So a lot of these West teams have to play the Wolves 4 times. So that means 2 trips to Minnesota. If you play them twice at home and twice on the road, that's a long flight that you're gonna have to. That's longer than any flight that the Eastern Conference teams have to do, at least by eyeballing it. I don't have all the numbers in front of me.
They're
but
like right there next to each other. That's
right.
hilarious.
So to me, like, look, you just take Minnesota, Milwaukee, Chicago, Indiana. That could be a conference. If you want to do something with the Pistons, the Cavs, the Raptors, they're all right there. They're all right there. They're closer. They're closer to the Raptors than they are the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
They're
closer to Minnesota's closer to the Bucks than they are to a single Western team.
Oh, yeah. They're closer to the Bucks, the Bulls, the Pacers, and the Pistons than any Western Conference team. And that said, Memphis is farther east than Minnesota is. So is New Orleans, farther east than Minnesota is.
Close to New Orleans, the Texas teams, OKC. I mean, Minnesota's just kind of over there by themselves.
They're by themselves. Yep, they're on that island there. So I think it should be Minnesota. But I'll tell you this, based on the way things sit right now, if something doesn't change by the time expansion comes around, these 3 teams we're going to have a Grizzly versus a Pelican versus a Wolf just scrapping and clawing to be the team that gets the privilege of moving into the Eastern Conference. It's going to happen. They're going to fight. And who wouldn't want to? Who wouldn't want to move over East, given how wide open the East is and given how insane the West is when we look at teams just loaded with talent? They're going to fight it out over who gets to move East. And it's going to be fascinating to see how all that plays out.
Yeah, that for sure. Which one do you think it is? It's going to be Minnesota?
My vote would be Minnesota, but I think you can make a compelling case for the other clubs too.
Like the other 2, yeah. Mm-hmm. What are the chances it's New Orleans that they decide on?
It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Look, you've got Houston right there. You've got San Antonio right there.
But that's the same thing with Memphis, right? Like they're right there. So that's my point. That's why I said I think it's Minnesota for sure. They're like up there by themselves. So, but yeah, one of these teams will have to go. And yes, 1, not 2, right?
You would just want, 2 teams come into the West. That would put 17 teams in the West, 15 teams in the East. 1 team moves from the West to the East. That would make it 16-16, which is what the NBA would
needed you to clarify that for everyone that thinks 2 teams would go.
Because math. A lot of people jump to that. The idea that, 2 teams come into the West, therefore you have to add 2 teams into the East to balance it out. But you're taking a team away from the West. And that's the key that people forget.
Yep.
When they're doing the math.
Well, all this seems really interesting, though, and Silver's talked about it. We know it's going to happen. We knew it was going to happen before these sales, but with the valuations of these franchises, I mean, why not, right?
And now that you've got the Lakers locked in at $10 billion, they're going to go. They're going to go to these investment groups and they're going to say $6 billion, $6.5 billion, no problem. They say, look, the Lakers just sold for 10. You want in? You want a part of this? You're going to have to pay. And so these valuations have gone up and up and up to now we're at the point where the dilution's not going to matter nearly as much. So this Lakers sale, it matters for the Lakers. It matters for Lakers fans. It matters for teams around the NBA where now the conversation is, are the Lakers going to be run more legitimately than they have been in the past? But it also matters for expansion, which I think is now more of a certainty than ever before due to this $10 billion Laker valuation. Unreal.
Yeah. Crazy. Absolutely nuts.
Crazy. All right, everybody, give us your thoughts. Who should move from the West into the East? Which team should it be? Let us know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.